Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good afternoon again. This is Jonathan Small, host and producer of Face to Face. And Face to Face is one of two different programs that I broadcast here live at AccessTV.org studios in downtown Hartford. And Face to Face is a show that's designed to ask my guests the hard questions and give you, the viewers, the answers and information that you deserve to know. This morning, or this afternoon actually, on this taping of Face to Face, we're doing a special edition. I have a return guest from All About You in 2015, and we're going to deal with a very serious legal matter that this particular guest is dealing with. My guest this afternoon is no other than the owner of Black Diamond Consultant LLC, located here in Connecticut, James Duckett. Good afternoon, James. How you doing?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. Good afternoon.
Okay, it's good to have you back here on this particular show, Face to Face. A lot has changed since the last time that we spoke and had an interview actually on All About You. Currently, you're dealing with some very serious legal matters. You've been found guilty on 12 of 13 different charges. First question, James, are you guilty?
No, I'm not, Jonathan.
Okay.
No, I'm not guilty.
You're not guilty. What actually happened over the past 2 years that's kind of put you in this position that you were found guilty of some very serious legal charges involving this whole Dillon Stadium project that you was part of?
Well, what happened was this. I plainly, Black Diamond Consulting Group, my company, and myself, had a contract with PSMG and Mitchell Anderson.
Yes.
That all minority owner funds dealing with the Hartford City FC Soccer Club would be placed in an account that's controlled by Black Diamond, and that would contribute to everyday business expenses as well as my salary to fulfill the obligations of getting the professional soccer team organization here in Hartford. Minority owner funds. Let me repeat that again. Minority owner funds, not city funds.
When you say minority owner funds, are we talking about minority towards a race issue or just a minority towards the financial issue?
No, when this situation was presented to me by Mr. Anderson and his partner Tom Nowajakowski, they seeked me and they came to visit me, not once but twice, at my residence with the proposition that they had 5 minority owners that he had under his belt that wanted to be a part of the Hartford City FC soccer program. My thing was to him, if my team and my organization brings the funding for the stadium, which I wanted to bring because we wanted the equity into the stadium, the ownership, as well as the majority ownership stake of the team. What's the skin in the game for the minority owners? And at that time, each minority owner was supposed to had invested $200,000 apiece, he said. So I looked at the opportunity. I thought it over for several weeks, and we reconvened, and he assured me that, everything was in place. And so, I knew that one thing that we could do, because in my past, I've done a lot in communities dealing with kids in inner cities and impoverished areas as far as with sports.
All right.
And I knew with the opportunity of the soccer team, we could facilitate that and have a powerful impact on the city of Hartford and the kids here in the community. So, you know, my thing was it was a great idea to be and have a major stake in the soccer, knowing that how much it's followed and supported here in the Hartford area.
Well, James, currently there were several other people who were indicted on these particular charges, the Dillon Stadium project. Mitch Anderson clearly stands out because he was found guilty, and he actually pleaded guilty in this particular case. You decided not to actually plead guilty, and I believe you took this case to trial, and then you were found guilty. So, number one, you have a, I guess, sentencing date that was delayed that's currently going to be taking place this up and coming week.
Yes.
And what made you decide actually not to, other than the fact that you're not guilty, you know, between you and your attorney, decide not to plead guilty and take this case to trial?
Well, you know, it's like this. The government came to me with a plea, one count conspiracy. I'm not pleading to nothing that I didn't do,
Right.
that I have no knowledge of. And, you know, so to lay down and plea for a lesser exposure is just not going to happen.
James, if you would have took that plea, how much jail time or prison time would that plea have come towards a sentencing, if you don't mind disclosing that particular deal that was laid out to you?
You're looking at anywhere between a year to 18 months, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which still would have been on your record labeled as a felony charge also.
Exactly.
Okay. Currently now, it looks like possibility you could be looking at, what, 50
months.
50 months
50 months.
minimum?
Maximum.
Maximum,
Yeah,
okay.
50 months. And, you know, it's up to the judge. You know, the judge has full control over this situation. You know, he could give a lesser sentence. He could give a higher sentence. But that's all up to the judge.
James, do you think a couple of years ago the Hartford Courant wrote some articles on your past towards embezzlement charges and some other related issues towards your house? There's a lot of details came about this past year of you spending money on luxury items. Do you think the media somehow played a role in people looking at you as somebody that's a guilty person more than an honest person?
Of course, of course. Basically, you know, the media did a good job of wooing the public.
Right.
And when I say wooing, they didn't mention none of the cold facts that was in court in trial, during the trial.
Yes.
They painted a picture in this story. I mean, if you read the articles, you would think that I was in control of this whole deal. You would think that I had the RFP with the city.
Right.
You would think that I was making decisions with monies and funds. You would think that I was in the everyday interaction, whether it was dealing with contractors, whether it was dealing, you know, with the city. I had no parts of that.
Okay.
And even in court, the contractors admitted. Contractors, architects, never met me, never talked to me, not once. You got to understand, I was a contractor and under contract with PSMG and Mitchell Anderson, just like the regular contractors.
Yeah.
Until the city fulfilled their obligations of switching the RFP to Black Diamond Consulting and also the land lease in Black Diamond Consulting, I was on the outside looking in. I showed up at appearances. I agreed to announce the forthcoming of what was going to happen.
Yes.
PSMG and Black Diamond never merged, as much as the city and Mitchell Anderson say we couldn't merge until the RFP was switched. So that was an idea that was brought to myself and my attorneys from the city, because in order to switch the RFP and Black Diamond's name without it going out to another bid, we would have to merge
Okay.
as one.
As one, right.
Yes.
Overall now, like I say, a lot has happened over the past 2 years. Is there any factual evidence that city contract funds were awarded to your personal account? I mean, where was this money coming from that the media kept labeling that went directly to James Duckett's account?
The money, as I said before, the money was supposed to be results of minority owners' contracts. I have a contract with Mitchell Anderson and PSMG, minority owner funds. 2 minority owners walked into my attorney's office and placed 2 checks, one each, for $200,000 apiece. That was $400,000. Mitchell Anderson had promised me, and we made a deal, that it would be 5 minority owners,
Right.
which would accumulate to $1 million. Out of that would be my salary, as well as everyday business to build the organization and the team without spending my own money. Now, I have no control over Mitchell Anderson's accounts.
Yes.
I have no knowledge over Mitchell Anderson's accounts. All I know is that that $400,000, after a week or 2 go by, it wasn't the $1 million that we agreed upon. My attorney and myself gave that back.
Okay.
And I said, deal off, because that's not what we agreed upon. At that moment, Mitchell Anderson came back to me and pleaded, because he's been salting after me and trying to make the best deal to save this project. James, don't leave. Don't abandon the project. Give me some time. I'll pay you in increments. At that time, he gave my attorney a check for $200,000, which was supposed to be his portion, PSMG's portion of minority ownership, and told my attorney to disperse it as Mr. Duckett sought and seen fit. So all funds that was funneled to Black Diamond came from PSMG, minorities owner funds, not city funds.
So by all funds coming from PSMG, you had every right to spend that particular money any way you see fit.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And the thing is, PSMG has the RFP with the city. The city are cutting the checks to PSMG. I have no knowledge of their books. I have no knowledge of what funds is coming from. I have no knowledge. All I know is I have a contract with this guy. And for me to build the organization and to bring the product to Hartford, this is what was on the table. So the paper tried to turn it as in we conspired.
Right.
This guy, he was turning in invoices. The feds, the government, they knew that I never turned in an invoice to the city. I never collected a check from the city, nothing. Even employees stated through investigation that I never walked in with an invoice. I never received a check or picked up a check. I had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Nothing to do with that.
Did you have to use some of your own personal money involving in this particular development project?
Well, see, the thing is, at the time, I was focused on 2 other projects when Mr. Anderson presented this to me.
Right.
And I told him, I said, look, right now, I really don't have time for this, But the idea grew on me as time went by because I knew the impact that the project could have. And, and like I always tell folks, this is a learning lesson. It's been a true learning lesson because, it's one of those things where you always got to keep your eyes on everything that's going on. And if I'm guilty of not being on top of this matter as much as possible.
Right.
But I felt like I had no legal standpoint there because I don't have contracts with the city. I'm not in no position to run or make decisions on this project until the RFP and the land lease is switched over. See, let's roll back a little bit. When we first sat with the mayor, Pedro, and Juan Figueroa, chief of staff, and also there was also Thomas Deller.
I was just going to mention
city
him.
manager.
He played a role.
And his assistant, Stephen Cole, who was the project manager. And then there was my team, about 8 of us, and several officials. The first time we met, you know, I told the city to keep their funding. And the mayor, he flat out almost fell out of his seat. You know, our thing was, we didn't want this to be a public-private venture.
Right.
We wanted the equity into the stadium, period, and the ownership.
Right.
So, being that said, you know, I told them, keep their funding. What you're doing with Mitchell Anderson before and up to that point, I have no control, no whereabouts, no understanding, until Black Diamond, my company, is put in a place where we can make decisions.
Right. Well, James, have you been found guilty on any, I guess, city awarded contracts directly to your personal account? Has any charges towards guilt has been found on you on any charges on that level?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
Okay.
None whatsoever. You know, when it comes to some of the personal items that they said that I say, and that's the thing, people get caught up into how much or what I spent the money on.
Right.
Now let's rewind this back. You know, we're bringing a professional soccer team here to Hartford. You guys that are unknowing and understand this, I'm recruiting players from other countries, Europe and different countries, the top players. These guys are traveling here. I'm entertaining them. I'm showing them what the city of Hartford and what City FC has to offer them if they were to come here and be a part of this organization. Not only that, I'm traveling up and down East Coast, Midwest, running to meet with owners of other NASL teams. Not only that, meeting with, corporations, building relationships for sponsorships, everything you need to have a solid core and a backbone to a great organization. You don't meet these folks with a Honda Civic.
Honda Civic, yeah.
Okay. And anybody who knows me personally know that, I wasn't going to beat up my own vehicles. Anybody knows me before know that I lived before this situation. And where the paper try to put it as, hey, I took advantage of an opportunity. No, I made a deal. And it took a while for it to sink in. Now, what Mr. Anderson was doing on his side, I have no control over that.
Well, what the paper stated, James, is that you purchased a $120,000 Range Rover. Now, you have every right to purchase any particular vehicle you decide to purchase if it's honest, legal money.
Exactly.
If it was city awarded money or some other form of illegal money, then obviously you had no right to accept that money, and you actually had no right to purchase anything with illegal funded money.
Exactly.
Now, you had a mansion, or you had a I shouldn't have said that, but you had a house actually before this whole deal came about.
Yeah, I lived in my residence ever since 2009.
Okay.
And this is way before me meeting Mr. Anderson and this ordeal. And, I work hard.
Right.
And just like on this project, I was working hard to build things. But until I'm put in a position where I can have a control factor, I didn't have a control factor. And like you said, those funds was minority owner funds, not city funds. And I have no whereabouts or understanding where those funds would come from other than Mr. Anderson, his and I contract, and where they were supposed to come from. And see, the paper tries to put it as I'm the mastermind. I guess I just committed the perfect crime.
Right.
Because throughout this whole ordeal, everything is circumstantial evidence, and it's all going off of what Mr. Anderson said.
Well, James, the jury was actually the one that found you guilty
Yes.
on 12 of the 13 charges.
Mm-hmm.
James, what is the most serious charge or charges that you are currently facing in this whole legal matter?
Well, I mean, you have a conspiracy situation, and under that conspiracy, you have several transactions of money transferring. So, you know, you have some money laundering, things like that they have. But, you know, if you're found guilty on one charge, it just roll effect, domino effect on other charges.
Right.
And the jury, you know, they weren't a jury that understood financial transactions and contracts. You know, the government actually did a good job of changing the mindset of the jurors and have them focus on how much and what I spun,
Right.
other than where the funding source of the funds was supposed to come from with our contract between PSMG and Black Diamond. And at the same time, my team did not separate me from Derek Edwards, who had put in, gave me proof of funds of money that was owed to me from an investment that I've been helping him since 2013 to close a deal on funding.
James, do you think the fact that Mitch Anderson was found guilty and he pleaded guilty in this whole legal matter, that somehow made it appear to the jury that you had some connections with Mitch Anderson, and that the fact that he was found guilty and he actually pleaded guilty, that somehow that made you guilty too? Or do you think it was something else that the jury decided to find you guilty on these charges?
Well, it's like I said, the prosecutors did a great job of, you know, showing the connection as far as money being transferred from PSMG accounts to my accounts. You know, also the prosecutors at times, they snuck in a fib or two, you know, when they were saying that I turned in invoices, which I never turned in invoices.
Right.
Never. And they have that as credible evidence on the 302s when employees inside the treasurer's office said, no, that I've never turned in an invoice. And they stated that. There was a lot of, you know, a lot of little jabs and little sneakiness going on through the trial. But the jurors couldn't decipher between the two. All they seen was money transferred. He bought this, he bought that, he did this, he did that. He's guilty.
Do you think you might have made, whether it's a mistake or a slight judgment error, making those purchases that you did, I mean, towards the Range Rover? I mean, obviously, again, you said you had a right, and I will say you had a right if the money came legally to purchase anything that you particularly choose to purchase. But do you think somehow that type of image of you buying that type of luxury vehicle was something that you probably wish now that you wouldn't have done, or you still would have done the same thing if you had it all over to do again?
I still would have done the same thing. You know, one thing when you're dealing with business and you're dealing with big business, you know, hey, you gotta play with the ballers. You know, you gotta be the part. And you know, it's one of those things where, you know, if it was taxpayers' money, if it was illegally obtained, no, I wouldn't have went that route. I wouldn't even been in the deal.
The deal, yeah. Did you actually, there was some reports that you actually never even played professional football, that the media portrayed that you really never played for the Redskins?
Yeah.
I mean, is that factual or true?
No, that's not factual. You know, I was in camp and things like that. And you know, teams, they do a lot to hide certain players. And, you know, between camp and practice squads and different things like that, they do a lot to hide players. And, you know, the media took that, you know, out of proportion. And there was even individuals there to testify that I was there in camp and on the practice squad at times. And the media tried to, all that was a shot at my character.
Character, yes, I
That's
was
it.
going to say
That's
that.
it. And just like the charge from, I was 27 years old. What was you doing when you were 27?
Right.
You know, and I made a mistake when I was 27. And, you know, I bit the bullet and you know, had to do what I had to do. And, but it was minor at the time. And, you know, it was something that it was part of my growth, my learning experience in life. And if I was trying to hide it, that's almost 20 years ago.
Right.
I would either have it expunged or sealed or anything. The city knew about it. Thomas Dillon knew about it. I told him about my past. So there was no qualm there with that, you know. So, but, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I had a right to spend how I seen fit to spend.
Right.
And we're not talking about city funds here. We're talking about minority owner funds.
Right.
So, you know, you that's where I'm guilty of.
Well, James, keep in mind, you were actually scheduled to be sentenced to prison in October. Some health issues came about that caused the delay. Have anything happened since that period of time to now that might kind of give you some chance of beating these charges? Are your attorney currently still working on a way to see if they could kind of get the less charge, I guess, the less time if it comes down to that? I mean, what's the whole process like now?
Well, it's not so much getting a less charge. Anybody that was in that courtroom, and if you look at the documents when it came to the transcripts of Mitchell Anderson's cross-examination, he admitted that there was no conspiracy. He admitted his lies. He admitted that he lied to his partner, Tom Nowajakowski, and turned his back. He admitted that he lied to the contractors who he was friends with of 18 years plus. He admitted that he lied to the city of Hartford.
Right.
He admitted that he lied to the government, the feds, in several different interviews prior to trial. And those interviews, there was different stories in each one. And the federal government knew there were different stories, and they still used him as a witness.
Right.
So, you know, when it came down to the end, and he knew that he had messed up, and I didn't announce the team officially, his back was against the wall. So he went out to protect his own hide. You know, so it's not a thing of trying to get a lesser charge. It's a thing of having a motion to acquit or get a new trial. You know, and that's what we're looking at. You know.
Well, James, obviously this has to be a very costly legal matter that you're going through, and emotionally to go along with some health issues, all combined at one particular time, it seems like. Obviously, we're getting close to the particular sentence date that you could be sentenced to some time. I believe you said the maximum amount of time if you're found, if the judge, I believe, is going to be the one that's going to determine how much time you will have to serve, would be 51 months.
Yeah, well, it could be more, it could be less.
It could be less.
The judge is in control of that. You know, he's in control of that. And you know, it's, you know, when we look at the grand scheme of things, it's sad because the impact that could have happened and could have been felt by the city of Hartford from this project could have been enormous.
Yeah.
And you know, and then sometimes it's not about doing the project; it's about who does the project.
Right.
And you know, if you have the right infrastructure, you know, to get the full effect for the kids, for the community, and the area, it could be a beautiful situation. And you know, but sometimes, when you're dealing with a situation like this, you got to walk in your lane and stay in your lane. And you know, the powers that be, you know, hey, they don't like for no interruption to come in and change their process. So, you know, this is bigger than James Duckett.
Right.
This is bigger than Mitchell Anderson. This is bigger than PSMG Black Diamond or Dillon Stadium. This is about a project that wasn't meant for Black Diamond or Dillon, or PSMG. And as you see now, the heads to be, Capital Region, they're in control of this project.
James, is Black Diamond Consulting LLC Group or LLC, is that still something in operation, or is that just some type of name that you, of a company that you put together? I mean,
you got to understand, you know, when you go through this legal situation, the impact that it not only had on company Black Diamond's name, James Duckett's name, my family, you know, their whole entirety. You know, right now, you know, everything has been at standstill. You know, I've been going through it, and it's taken a toll on my health.
Right.
It's taken a toll on my health. And you know, but when you have faith and you know that hey, you're innocent and you didn't do it, that's when you know you get the strength to keep pushing forward. And you know that you're going through this for a particular reason, and you gotta trust that faith and understand that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, James, you kept mentioning throughout the show, or you mentioned a few times, that the disappointment of what this project could have consisted of towards the city of Hartford. So even though, you know, obviously this has been devastating on you in many different levels, you still feel some, I guess, emotionally distraught that the impact of this project would have, what it was designed to do, really hasn't taken place. It's not the only failed project, you know, whoever was at fault. But if you was able to come through all of this and somehow not being able, if the judge says, okay, I'm just going to give you some probation, and give you some time to get your health and everything straightened out, would you ever decide to come back and get involved in the project in Hartford on this scale?
Emotionally, going through everything I've gone through, you know, you just want to walk away,
right,
and take your losses and learn from this. But just like you just said, when you think about the impact and you think about the effect that you could have on the community, of course it makes you, not only that, when you're dealing with the community, you're not only dealing with the kids, but you're dealing with the taxpayers. You know, you have a lot of people out there working every day to try to get a better life and do things better here where they live in Hartford, in this city. And to, you know, to be in a situation where you're ridiculed and you're blamed for stealing or defrauding a city of taxpayers' money, that carries a heavy impact, man.
On your image also.
Well, you know, let's put the image aside.
Okay.
Let's put the image aside. You know, let's just deal with the facts that be. You know, anybody who knows me and close to me know, if I mess up, I tell you I messed up. You know, and who I am is who I am. If you can't deal with who I am, then hey, I can move on. You know? So, you know, let's put the image aside.
Okay.
Let's look at the hardcore facts here. And that's the effect that this has had. And, you know, when people don't know, the public that is, what the real facts are and everything that's going on in this situation, it bothers you. It bothers you. And, you know, there's been some long sleepless nights, you know. And, you know, but, you know, it's like anything, you know, hey, you know that you're going through this for a reason. And, you know, before you know it, all the BS will rise. And, you know, you can hide something today, but it could be 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and it'll pop up and the truth will come out.
Well, James, I want to be fair, and I want the people out there to don't say that I avoided certain questions. I want to address two other issues. Mitch Anderson has been allowed to actually leave the state. He's down in Florida. You have not, but you was found actually guilty on one charge, or people say that you left the state one time while being under probation and you did not inform your probation officer. Was that a mistake that you made, or was that true?
That was incorrect.
That was incorrect?
That was incorrect. Okay. This is what happened. When I was put on probation, you know, we're looking at ever since end of June of 2016. No problems whatsoever. But at the time, with my probation, that is, and with the government. But through this process, I've been getting threats. My family has been getting threats. And when I decided to move from my then address, I didn't give a forwarding address because I didn't trust the system
Mm-hmm.
because I know that there's a higher power behind those threats.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I was giving the permission to travel
Mm-hmm.
and to Florida, and normally I fly,
You do, okay.
but this time I drove.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was, in the process of going to Florida, the vehicle that I picked up to use was in New York
Mm-hmm.
and in Massachusetts
Right.
at a dealership. So I had to get to Massachusetts and New York to get the plates before I went to Florida. All was in one trip. Now, the federal government, they found out that I was in Mass and in New York during that process,
Mm-hmm.
which would be right on the flight to Florida anyway.
Right.
And they didn't know that I flew. I didn't fly. I drove.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with my address changing, and I didn't notify them, so they violated me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a situation that I dealt with.
And now you currently have an ankle monitoring brace
Oh yeah.
on you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I have some jewelry on my ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been since what was that, June of this year.
These threats that were made against you and your family, were they violent threats or just some other form of threats that they
They
made?
were violent and, just drama and violent threats,
Mm-hmm.
of course. I mean, I wouldn't, you got to respect the law. And I wouldn't have kept that a secret
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't feel like, hey, I need to protect myself and my family.
Was these threats by anybody that you knew or anonymous threats?
They would always, it was some cowards
Mm-hmm.
that hide behind, whether they text from a crazy number,
Mm-hmm.
whether they send a message through a messenger on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was to myself or to my family members.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these were situations that accumulated numerous times,
Mm-hmm.
And, and knowing this situation, there's a lot of, mad individuals out there,
Mm-hmm.
So, it's crazy when, that's the worst part of this whole thing,
Right.
is when you got to look over your shoulder
Mm-hmm.
and, not trust the system.
Right. Well, I didn't realize it was this ugly. I mean, I haven't even seen or spoken to you in over a year. And obviously some things I just found out about this show just a couple days ago, actually last night, to be honest, that you were going to be the guest. And I really appreciate you being willing to come down this afternoon and be candid with me. And the only thing I could say is you said that you are not guilty. We didn't discuss any of this 2 years ago, obviously, because none of these things came up until after that particular All About You show. So, I mean, James, I wish you the best. It's wrong if somebody is not guilty that's been found guilty and will have to do crime for a particular crime that you have not done. That's a bitter pill. Some people will say usually when you see this many red flags or this man has to be involved in something. But obviously a jury was the one that made the verdict of guilt on all charges. And unfortunately, we do have to respect or just go with the judicial system that this country currently consists of. But if there's anything else that you would like to say before we end this particular show, the camera is yours.
Well, I mean, basically, I would like to apologize to the city of Hartford. So much, people don't realize the headaches and the heartaches that I go through when I think about, what could have been. And at the same time, to be accused of something like this and, when you have the masses against you, the grand scheme of things is, against you. As we all know, the system has failed many other times.
Right.
Failed many other times. And, right now, I have to swallow this pill. I have to have faith. And, I have to trust that things will work itself out. And, being that said, it's not over with yet.
Right.
It's not over with yet. And, I just hope that, even if it's not Black Diamond or myself, but, the new developers who take this project on,
Right.
have the impact, the real true impact that it should have to the kids. And, but I want folks to really just have an understanding, people who's been here in the city of Hartford, for years, know the dynamics of the financials, know the dynamics of the city government, just like, this RFP was awarded to Mitchell Anderson a day after he handed in his proposal.
Right.
How much due diligence was that? As people see, there's been an insurance settlement between the city and the insurance company that Mitchell Anderson had said that was original insurance to be over top the construction and provide, assurance, proof of insurance,
Yes.
which was a fraudulent situation. That happened in 2014 before I even got involved into this thing.
Right.
The year before I got involved. So, there was some red flags that I didn't even know about.
Exactly, yes.
And what folks don't understand is until Black Diamond or myself, until we had the RFP, until we had the land lease, I had no control, no control.
Right.
And they need to understand that when you're a thief and you're stealing, you don't give money back.
Right.
You don't give money back. Just the way Mitchell Anderson lied to his partner, contractors, the city of Hartford, the government, the federal government, prosecutors. He played me close for a long time and lied.
Right.
And, when you read the papers, you would think that James Duckett and Black Diamond controlled this deal.
Yeah.
I had no control. And, I guess the only control I had was I should have signed a prop agreement.
Right.
But since I didn't, and he did, I guess he's exonerated and all the blame gets put my way.
Well, James, again, I understand this is a very serious legal matter. I appreciate you being willing, like I mentioned earlier, for you to come down here this morning and put yourself in front of the viewership through the internet ways. I know this has to be a very tough ordeal that you're going through. By any chance, if this particular show could somehow help you, if you are an innocent person, I would really feel gratitude towards. But hopefully at some point, things could work out for the truth. And, I don't know what's going to happen this upcoming week when everything gets sentenced down in Bridgeport. But all I could say right now is I wish you the very best of luck, the very best of health. I'm sorry that your family, unfortunately, had to come through with death threats and whatever other problems that this caused between you and your family. And that's really being sincere as me being the host. And again, I just wish you the very best of luck and a very speedy health recovery. And until we see each other again, that's all I can really say.
Right. Well,
Okay.
I just want to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
And for anyone who has questions or, thoughts about this whole deal, do yourself a favor. Look at the court documents. Go find the real facts in the transcripts of all the witnesses in the court during the trial. And that will answer. And then you would wonder and ask yourself a question. Why weren't these facts told in the Hartford Current? You would ask yourself that. So do yourself a favor and just look at the factual information that's about this case, and you will see that, it will totally exonerate and acquit me out of all the whole situation. You would wonder, why is this guy even indicted in this situation? So, I just for peace of mind, anyone who really is concerned or have a lot of questions and thoughts. As we know, media can be the media, and media is pushed and funneled by the powers that be. Let's look at the real facts of the situation. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Those words are well taken by my guest this morning, James Duckett, the owner of Black Diamond Consulting Group, LLC, located here in Connecticut. This is one of the most deep shows that I've had over the past 5 years. I mean, I've done some very serious shows over the past 5 years, but this show, I think, is right at the top of the most serious type of show that I've ever had to host. I mean, Dr. William Pettit, when I had him on a couple of years ago or last year, was a real, serious-minded show. I had former Mayor Eddie Perez on in 2012. So I've done some real serious, hot topics. Actually, I am taking a leave of absence over the past 3 months, so you probably haven't even seen Face-to-Face live on a regular basis, but this was a particular special show. Probably still going to take some more time off going into December. Got to make some real important decisions of my life on my own as well. But I still feel like I'm part of AccessTV.org network. I appreciate actually Stan giving me an early birthday present by being able to do this particular show. And I have a birthday coming up this particular week. Also, me and J. Stan McCauley is going to be a guest on Face the State, which is going to be taped this particular Thursday. It's going to be aired next Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. On WFSB Channel 3. So I'm looking forward for the first time actually being a guest on Face the State with Dennis House and Susan Raff. I know J. Stan McCauley's been on that show a few times. I think he may have a big announcement to make also. But again, until I see you again, if it's not this month, for the new year of 2018, for people out there, have a very blessed day and keep the faith. Thank you.
My name is J. Stan McCauley, and I do business as Light Source Productions. I provide professional services in the area of strategic video communications. First, what we do is we help you craft your message using what I call the rule of the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. We do event documentation, content acquisition, full-scale productions, editing, and of course distribution through our social media television network. And with social media, video is more important now than it has ever been. Whether you're talking big business, small business, nonprofit, church, or just an individual. Let's say you're planning an event, a wedding, whatever the case may be. But let's say a big event, but no video. And you spent all this time, all these hours to put this event on, and maybe 100, 200 people attend the event. But more important than that is that thousands could attend by watching it on social media. But of course, you don't think about this until after the event is over. You can't afford not to capture it for social media. And despite what people think, I am affordable. Give me a call. Let's plan your next video project and share it with the world on my social media television network. I promise you that you will have the attention of one person, me.